When you look at the international investors, what kind of conversations are you having these days?
The conversations in the past used to be more about the oil market and also the difficulty of accessing the capital market. But the conversation has changed in recent years.
What do you think makes Saudi Arabia such a unique place as an emerging market?
Saudi has the scale and liquidity. It has the largest equity market in the region and most liquid.
For investors looking to invest in Saudi Arabia in the next 3 to 5 years, what are some of the areas that you think is most promising?
Starting with alternative financing. I think alternative financing is becoming an interesting area.
Welcome to On Point by Argam. Today I'm joined by Ali Almansour, CEO of SAB Invest. SAB Invest is one of Saudi Arabia's leading asset managers, overseeing public and private market strategies across the kingdom and beyond. In this episode, we talk about how Saudi capital markets are evolving, what institutional investors are focused on today, and how the kingdom is positioning itself in a changing global investment landscape. This is On Point, real conversations, global perspective.
This episode of On Point is presented by STC Bank, driving financial innovation across the kingdom.
Ali, this is the second time we speak. You were also in my documentary, Scaling Saudi. I feel like I'm recruiting everybody who was in my documentaries into this podcast, because when we do these documentaries, I feel like sometimes they're only in it for like a minute or so. So today is your opportunity to talk to us for as long as you wish and share some more in-depth ideas and what you're currently working on at SAB Invest. How long have you been with SAB Invest? So you're the CEO of SAB Invest for people who don't know.
So it's been around 4 years now.
What was your background? How did you get started in this space?
So initially in my careers, I started actually as an internal auditor for a few years. I really appreciated the profession. I learned a lot, but then I shifted to investments, and I worked initially with pension plans, endowments in the kingdom, different asset allocators, and also worked with some investment managers later on. And 4 years ago, I shifted to this role.
Maybe for international investors, and this show is primarily designed to attract international investors, entrepreneurs, talent to Saudi Arabia. What would you say to them? How would you describe the kingdom today compared to, let's say, 5 years ago?
So maybe I can look at how the kingdom has changed 10 years ago, because there has been major changes over the past 10 years. And the way I look back at it is that there was a number of institutions that were either created from scratch or activated in a different way that had led, a major transformation in the economy and the country. And I will highlight one of the more significant ones, starting with the PIF, the Public Investment Fund. The PIF was activated as the catalyst for the economic diversification, for the accelerating the transformation under the vision. It has created and supported the creation of new sectors in the economy from scratch, created co-investments, partnerships. And the second institution also that was activated or actually launched is the National Development Fund. And this fund sits above 11 to 12 different arms. Each arm is focused on supporting a specific sector in the economy. Some of these sectors existed before, some are new, whether industrial or tourism, entertainment. And each arm is focused on providing long-term capital to these industries. Providing expertise, ensure that these new sectors are sustainable and can have meaningful contribution to the economy over time. The third entity that was created is the National Debt Management Center. And the creation of this center has basically given the government access to the debt market both locally and globally, and it helped smoothen the fiscal budget and reduce the volatility that's linked usually with the fluctuation in the oil markets. These three institutions combined, and many others, maybe we don't have the time to go through all, but these are the more significant ones, in my view, have contributed to changing the DNA of the Saudi economy. And in parallel to that, there has been decisive and fast regulatory changes. And maybe here I'll just touch on the regulatory changes in relation to the capital markets, where that's what matters most to what I do. 10 years ago, the QFI regime was introduced, which is the qualified foreign investor regime, basically opening a window into the capital market and to the equity market for foreign investors to come in. Investors started to come in 10 years ago. A few years later, the Saudi market joined the emerging market indices, and that attracted a great amount of inflows from mainly passive investors. And at around that time, also the bankruptcy law was also introduced, which was very important for the launch of private credit investment. And we've seen growth in that area on the back of stronger credit enforcement and clarity in the law. A few years later, the regulator opened the real estate market for foreign investors through funds. And this month, the regulator has abolished the QFI regime, opening the market for all segments of investors, whether institutional or retail from international investors. And there is also public discussions, and seems that it's going to be happening soon, of also opening the market for foreigners to own real estate directly in certain zones and certain cities in the kingdom. And also there has been public discussions about increasing the foreign ownership in Saudi listed companies from the current 49% cap to higher limits. So all of these regulations are happening fast and fascinating to be happening over the period of 10 years, and the market is wide open. So I think with what has happened over the past 10 years, I think the Saudi economy has moved from an oil market to watch to a transforming G20 market that you want to underwrite.
Now, when you look at something like SAB Invest or the investment arm of other banks, did they start in parallel with the beginning of those new entities that you mentioned, like PIF, NDF, etc., or SAB Invest was there before? I'm just trying to understand, for example, in the case of SAB Invest, did you start as a result of these changes and those funds being developed, or were you already there?
I'll give you some history on that. So initially, let's say before 2007, 2006, investment activities used to be a department of the bank. Every bank had a department that's focused on investments. But then the CMA was created and became a separate regulator, and it mandated the separation for all investment entities away from the central bank regulated banks. And then that was the birth of the capital arms of the banks as separate independent entities. And that didn't mean that was the beginning of these capitals managing investments. So they inherited the investment the banks used to manage. And maybe I should mention here something that we are proud of at SAB Invest. Back in 1992, the investment team in the bank launched the first Saudi equity fund. That's now more than 35 years ago, and we manage that fund until today, and we are very proud of continuing to manage it. So the capital spinning off was a continuation of what the bank used to do, but it's now separate under different regulator. But I think what has happened in terms of in the investment scene for the capitals and other non-bank affiliated capitals is that the opportunity set has expanded. So before 10 years, the focus was mainly on public equities, money market, fixed income. But today we invest across most asset classes. We invest in venture capital, we invest in private equity, we invest in real estate, REITs, and different variation of each asset class.
How much of your work is about attracting investors internally from the kingdom, and how much of it is with international investors? And when you look at the international investors, what kind of conversations are you having these days?
So on the first angle of the question, the conversations in the past used to be more about the oil market and also the difficulty of accessing the capital market. But the conversation has changed in recent years. It became more about the giga projects, the Yom, the Red Sea, the Giddiya, and all of the other projects that are being built. It has become more about the world global events that are going to be hosted in the kingdom, the Expo 2030, the World Cup 2034. It's about let's meet in the next FII conference or next LEAP conference, Cityscape. So the conversation has changed. And I would say while oil remains an important element to the market, we see it becoming less of the main topic in the conversation. And actually, we at SAB Invest did some analysis on that just to see how the numbers look. So we took the IMF data of the public finances of the government, and we measured the correlation between the oil prices and the fiscal budget, both on the revenue side and on the spending side. And we looked at it over two frameworks. We looked at it prior to the vision, prior to 2016, and then for 15, 20 years, and then post the vision over the past 10 years. And essentially, prior to the vision, when we measured the correlation between the oil prices and the revenue and the budget, it was 99 out of 100. So there was very high correlation. And when we measured it on the spending side, the government spending and the budget relative to oil prices, it was 94, so still very high. Then when we looked at the period post the vision over the past 10 years, the correlation between oil and the government revenue and the budget has reduced from 99 to 84. And the correlation between the spending or between oil prices and the government spending in the budget has reduced from 94 to 57. And I think that that's not an accident. The reforms have played out, whether on the tax and subsidy reforms, the effective debt management program, the new sectors that are being launched into the economy has played a role. Now, is the Saudi economy still tied to oil? Yes. Is the Saudi economy still hostage to oil? I think less and less. And that's why we see it becoming less dominant in the conversation. And also the emergence of the new developments, new projects, the restructuring that's happening is also becoming more of a main topic for us. And on the market access, with the regulatory changes that has happened, that's becoming also less of a main topic. The conversation around the market become more about portfolio construction. How do I size the Saudi market into my emerging market mandate? Which themes to focus on? So, and then you asked about the type of investors and the profile of investors. I remember 10, 15 years ago, there were a handful of large international investors, mainly sovereign wealth funds, that would come to the region. And from time to time, they may set up a public equity mandate. But now we see broader categories of investors coming to the kingdom. And I can summarize them into four main categories that we see come to the market. One are the benchmark-driven investors. And these are large sovereign wealth funds, pensions, insurance companies that allocate to the market as a function of having passive exposure to emerging market. And with the Saudi equity market joining the passive indices, they allocate. These type of investors, they focus more on the transparency, the liquidity, the governance, and also their alignment with the index that they track. The second category are more the strategic corporate investors, and these investors tend to care more about the market entry, the partnerships, the localization. The third category are the alternative managers. And these managers, they come to invest in private credit, private equity, infrastructure, and they care more about the deal flow, the regulation, the type of GBs that already exist, and whether they can find a way to co-manage some of the strategies. And we have been having many of these conversations at our end. And the final category are the private wealth family offices. And this category tend to focus more on co-investments. They would invest in themes that might align with their own operating businesses. At SAB Invest, just from our own experience, if we say 3 years ago we managed X amount for international, regional and global investors, today we manage 17 times that X. So we have seen a great deal of inflow and interest from both regional and global markets.
So right now, would you say that more than half of your investment that you're managing is for regional and international?
I wouldn't say that much,
No, okay.
But it became a lot more significant than it used to be in the past.
So the 17 times, I thought it was 17 times of 3%, no?
No, it was an ex real dollar amount.
Oh, I see.
Okay, and or real amount, and
okay, now it's 17.
That is 17 that amount, which
okay.
I think was great
thanks,
progress.
Thanks for the clarification. I always say that as far as emerging markets go, this is a market that is closest to a mature market. I wonder if you agree with me, and what do you think makes Saudi Arabia such a unique place as an emerging market for international investors looking in?
I think at a high level, being aligned under a vision gives everyone involved a roadmap, a clear roadmap. It aligns the policymakers, the regulators, and ultimately the market participants and investors and where the direction is heading. And I would add that Saudi has the scale and liquidity. It has the largest equity market in the region and most liquid. It has also a stable macro and financial situation. And today, if you look at the sovereign balance sheet, it's conservatively managed with debt to GDP around 30%. That gives ample room for policymakers to move and manage the economy. Also, you see more depth beyond just public equities, as we touched on. Now there is a bigger debt market. There is a venture capital market. There is a private equity and private and infrastructure market that investors that are investable and at a scale where investors can access both local and global.
So for investors looking to invest in Saudi Arabia in the next 3 to 5 years, a couple of questions comes to mind. One is, what are some of the areas that you think is most promising? And also, do you feel that these areas are more in the private sector or in the public sector? What's your thoughts on that in general?
So maybe I'll share with you some of the areas that we are looking at deeply and we are active in. We have made investments in, and starting with alternative financing. I think alternative financing is becoming an interesting area. And here I mean, so in the past, businesses, entrepreneurs depended on banks as the sole provider of financing, but that is changing. And now they are looking at alternative forms of financing. And we are stepping in as private credit managers. to provide that form of financing. Last year, we at SAB Invest, we launched 2 private credit funds. One is focused on the venture capital, and the other is more diversified across venture, SME, middle corporate infrastructure. And our experience has been outstanding in terms of the appetite from investors, given the risk and return profiles of these strategies, and also the income component in those strategies, and also from the ability to deploy in high quality deals and seeing good deal flows. And today we are halfway into deploying both funds. I expect before the end of 2026 we would have fully deployed both funds. So it has been a great experience so far.
And how big are these funds?
So our venture focused fund, we started both with small tickets. The venture focused started with 100 million. The multi-strategy started with 350 million.
Dollars or reals?
Reals.
Reals, okay.
And our aim for the multi-strategy at least is for it to reach $1 billion by year end. So that's one area we see opportunities and we've been playing in. The other area is in the tourism and the tourism ecosystem. It's a clear national agenda under the vision to attract more tourists. And the target that has been announced is to reach 150 million tourists by 2030 from both domestic and international tourists. The latest figure that was publicly shared is that the kingdom has reached 122 million by year 2025. So that's creating interesting opportunities in that ecosystem and the adjacent businesses and that's supporting the tourism growth, whether in hospitality, in real estate, in transportation, FMP, and we find opportunities there. Another area is the healthcare and biotech. It was announced, I think, 2 years ago that the private hospitals manage or operate about 23% of the hospital beds in the kingdom. And the target, the stated target is for that to reach 68% by 2030. So that's really a good runway for growth for the private care providers and the private health providers. And on the biotech side, that's also seems to be a national priority, especially on the localization of vaccine manufacturing, on technologies around genomics and precision medicine. And I think that provides opportunities for investors in that space. Another also priority and theme that seems to have focus is the AI and cybersecurity. And also that creates opportunities for investors. In the last LEAP conference, I believe around $15 billion of investments were announced to be invested in AI and AI-related technology within the Saudi market. And that will definitely create opportunities in data centers, in computing power and hardware, and real estate.
And when I think about SAB Invest as an investor in these areas, should we see it more as a GP, or do you sometimes also work as an LP in like investing in other funds?
So I would say we sometimes work as a GP and the only GP that invest in this space, and in certain other times we are co-GPs with other GPs. Okay. So we really like to partner with other people who are specialized in certain sectors. And sometimes these are global GPs that are coming to the market and they need the local partner and the local expertise. And we find it an excellent marriage where we co-manage and launch strategies that they have managed in the past, and now they are exploring to also deploy and manage in the kingdom.
So your primary LP is a SAB bank, or do you also sometimes get investment from other LPs, other international LPs?
No, actually, our LPs are our different type of investors. And that's going to be institutions, that's going to be high net worth, family offices, endowments, from both the kingdom and the region and globally.
And you're seeing increased interest globally from people coming in?
Definitely. And I mentioned to you the numbers and the inflows that we have seen, and we are now managing ourselves, and we've started to receive.
Yeah.
And also the active conversations.
Yeah.
There is now more active dialogue about local opportunities. The dialogue used to be a lot more about us taking our or investing our client money abroad, and we still do that. I mean, we have clients who are interested in the global markets. We identify opportunities and we give them access to what we think are good quality opportunities abroad to diversify their portfolios. But now that conversation is becoming more balanced with also interest in the local market from global investors. And these different areas of interest and areas that could offer interesting opportunities can be accessed through multiple ways. It can be accessed through the public market. It can be accessed through the private equity or venture market alike.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was interesting hearing about some of the different areas that you're focusing on. So you mentioned tourism, healthcare, and alternative financing. One area that is sort of up and coming, and to my knowledge, only a few GPs are currently investing in, is gaming. And we know that the kingdom is very bullish on gaming. I was wondering whether you guys are even looking into it. Has there been any kind of research from your side? Do you have anything to share? Do you think might be on your future roadmap?
So look, I think then we're definitely engaged in the new sectors. And I mentioned to you tourism, healthcare, biotech, and we are getting our heads and hands around each new sector that emerges because we think the opportunities are going to be there. And it's definitely something that we're usually building capabilities and expertise to be able to explore.
You talked about investors. Now, for founders looking to potentially bring their companies to Saudi, whether as a HQ or just opening a new office here, what do you think Saudi offers them today that maybe wasn't there a few years ago? And what the whole point of this conversation is to do a bit of myth busting and telling people that things have changed. So what do you think Saudi is offering now?
So if I summarize it, I think Saudi now offers three things. One is capital, access to capital. And there has been deliberate and significant efforts to create a funding ecosystem for entrepreneurs and for founders in the kingdom. And we have seen the establishment of Jeddah, the Saudi Venture Capital, the Saudi Venture Company, the SME Bank. All of these arms were created by the government to support and make it easy for founders to access capital. And then we came along as the private sector and the private provider of capital and financing, because we saw that the ecosystem is started to develop and become meaningful and become attractive for private investors. So now we have that access to financing. The second is the consumer. So you have a large consumer base in the kingdom. You can pilot your products with large corporates. You can pilot them within the Giga project ecosystem, and that gives you that opportunity. The third thing is the policy infrastructure. So it has become easy to license in the kingdom. Regulators now offer sandbox environments for founders to test their products and test their ideas. And this makes as an initial step to make it ready for licensing. And we've seen that the founders riding that journey very smoothly. I think that has reflected in the numbers that are publicly reported. In 2024, the amount of funding to startups in the kingdom was around $700 million. That number has grown in 2025 by 145%. to $1.7 billion. And this essentially of funding to startups, and this essentially ranks the kingdom as the top rank or the first in terms of the amount of startup funding in the MENA region. And that amount represents half of the funding to startups in the entire MENA region.
When you look at some of the companies that are coming to the kingdom, usually the first thing that they think about is, okay, I'm going to be able to raise my next round there. You know, like that's usually the first thinking about maybe coming to Saudi. And then they come and explore the market and they see that there are many other opportunities. Like you said, it's a great market, you know, in terms of size, in terms of purchase power. But what are some of the mistakes that founders make when they want to come to the kingdom? And if you were advising them, what would you say to them to make that journey smoother and make it easier for them to enter the market and be successful here?
So I would say when you come to the market here, you want to ask yourself a few questions. First, how does my product fit with the national priorities? Second, who is going to be my first paying customers in this market? And third, how truly am I committed to build capabilities locally? Founders, I think that they sometimes commit the mistake of coming here as tourists or looking for raising a quick round. But the reality, if you are not committed to build capabilities on the ground, or you are too late to build your team on the ground, and also build relationships with customers and regulators, and you come up with a copy and paste product from a global market and not localizing it, that end up not to be a good story for founders. So I think the earliest that you can answer these questions, whether am I aligned with the national agenda, where the priority is going to be, what level of resources I need to commit on the ground, and who are my customers going to be, so I can start building those relationships. The quicker that you do that, the higher the chances of success are.
Following on from that theme, how important do you think international talent is in the next phase of growth of the kingdom? And what is the role of a firm like yours, SAB Invest, in making that happen?
I think international talent remains important for the kingdom. But I think we are moving from a model of importing talent to pairing global talent with local capabilities. And if you see the sectors that are growing the most, the cybersecurity, the biotech, the AI, these are global sectors that require global expertise, and the ability to bring global expertise and mix them and fit them in the local context, the more that we can, I think that the more value that we see from bringing talent from abroad. We at SAB Invest have also done that and will continue to do that, where areas that, for example, the quantitative strategies and managing quantitative strategies has been managed globally for a long time. Now we are implementing it in the Saudi market, and we brought talent that have specialized in that to work with our local teams and integrate locally to localize those strategy in a Saudi context, and that has been very successful.
And do you see more local champions emerging in this new environment, or do you see more global challengers coming in?
I would say both, and I think the best outcome, and when you see local champions becoming global challengers, and I think a sign of maturity for the market and the economy when we move from import-driven to more local value creation, to more local capability building.
a lot of your work has to do with risk assessment, risk management, right? How has your relationship changed with risk over the years as you've been in this role?
We are paid and we work to take risk in our industry. And if anything, I think the years has taught me, or taking risk over the years has taught me humility. It's humbling. You're not going to be right every week or every month. But what you hope for is that your big bets are correct. And also, if you're correct more than 50% of the time, you'll still do okay. If anything I learned about risk is now I focus on taking risk with asymmetrical outcomes as much as I can. And by asymmetrical here, I means outcomes that have limited downside but bigger upside potential, and that tend to be more rewarding.
Okay, this is a part of the the show that we normally call the No Shimaq Zone. In the beginning, the idea was that people would come with their shimaq and then they would take it off. But we realized that that was too disruptive, because every time they took their shimaq off, we did a bit of testing. Then the hair, it needed adjusting, and they had to go back to the mirror. So we now tell people to just come without a shimaq.
I think it's easier.
But this is the the part where we want to talk a little bit about you, some of your personal reflections. That is like a nice way of getting to know you a little bit behind, a little bit beyond your role, right? So the first question I have in the No Shimaq Zone is, what is a belief that you held early in your career that you no longer agree with? And we all have that, like when we start, there are things that, we really think that things are the way that they should be. But I would love to know whether you have any of those.
So actually, many of my early perceptions have changed over time, but maybe I will highlight the perception that I could do everything by myself, and the perception that I can be faster and efficient doing things by myself. But that has changed. I learned that that's not the best way to get things done. I think when you get involved with people, the diversity of mindsets, the diversity of thinking, bring a lot to the table. It might feel challenging sometimes, but it's actually yields normally better outcomes, better results. So I became more, first of all, I involve more people in what I do. I became more tolerant to being challenged and different views, as normally it will get us into a better place.
That's very wise. So when things get intense, and they do, especially in the markets that you are in, how do you stay grounded and manage things?
Yeah. So the reality is, first of all, I'm calm by nature. And when things get intense, I get calmer. I don't know why. But the reality is I'm not able to switch off when things are intense. Even if I physically step out, my mind will remain involved and engaged with what situation we are dealing with. But normally I would talk to people that I trust their advice, take time alone to reflect and think about it, and will only switch off when there is a solution in the horizon, or there is a clarity on the situation. That's how I'm wired. I don't know if that's healthy or not, but that's who I am.
That sounds really healthy, actually. I wish I could say I was the same. Yeah, to get calmer when things get hard, that's that's a skill. Did you develop it as a skill, or were you always like that?
I think I'm wired as this. I mean, that's and I've had previous bosses tell me that, well, we are going through a chaos. Why are you too calm? Why aren't you reacting enough? So I think I have been this way. Yeah.
Okay, let's. I love this question, and I know it's a little bit cheesy, but I think it's an important question. If you were going to give an advice to your younger self, what would it be? Depends on maybe how far back we go. Like,
Yeah.
You know, like let's say, how far do you want to go back? Do you want to go back to the beginning of your career, or maybe you know, let's say 10 years ago?
Throughout, maybe
Yes,
I'll
yes.
just highlight
Yeah.
something that I think younger people should know. One thing I would look back at is and tell myself is that, you know, people around you, and this is something I've observed over the years, people around you in the ecosystem you are in or in the company you work at, they become the happiest people when they see someone who's committed, who's trying hard, who with the right attitude. It becomes their personal projects to sponsor that person. So I would say trust the ecosystem around you. People intuitively want to help younger people to grow and succeed, and they become actually their mission to see these people succeed, as long as they are making that first step and committing to long-term success and have the right attitude for it.
I love it. I don't think we could bring it to an end at a better point than this. So thank you so much for being here. It was a wonderful conversation.
Thank you, Somi. Thanks for having me.